Welcome to or welcome back to the Anti-Settle podcast. This is the space for ambitious women who know they were made for more than simply checking boxes, meeting everyone else's expectations, and building a life that looks good on the outside, but leaves them feeling exhausted, disconnected, or unfulfilled on the inside. If you've reached the point where you can no longer ignore the pull to prioritize your health, your happiness, your dreams, and yourself, you belong here. Around here, we believe that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's the catalyst that changes everything. I'm your host, Cassie Rivard, and in each week, I'll take you behind the scenes of my own journey, the lessons I'm learning in real time, and the powerful shifts I've witnessed inside my coaching practice. I'll share the mindset tools, belief work, nervous system insights, client stories, and honest conversations that help women stop settling and start building lives they genuinely love. More than anything, my hope is that this becomes more than a podcast. I hope it becomes a community of women who inspire one another, challenge one another, hold one another accountable, and remind each other what's possible when you have a clear vision, the right support, practical tools, and the courage to trust yourself. So whether you're walking the dog, driving to work, folding laundry, or finally taking a few minutes for yourself, I'm so glad you're here. Here's to never settling.
Hey there, welcome to or welcome back to the Anti-Settle podcast. My name is Cassie, and today we are talking about probably my favorite topic to talk about, and something that I personally have had to work really hard to get better at and master, and I continue to work on it as it comes off in layers, but it's something I'm so passionate about, and it's something that without me even realizing it, so many of my clients say this is the number one thing I help them with. So I'm so excited to talk about it today on the podcast. So what I'm talking about today is our inner talk, inner critic, self-dialogue, the conversation you're having with yourself all day long. Any way you want to see those words, that is what we're talking about today. So I know there's a percentage of people in this world that don't have an inner dialogue, which to me that is mind-boggling because I have a voice I feel like is constant in there. I've had so many people say, Cassie, you're kind of quiet. And I'm like, well, you heard about me in my head. I'm not quiet. I'm anything but quiet in there. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to have a very talkative inner talk. But what I've come to realize over the last several years is the quality and texture of that voice inside of your head is going to determine the quality of your life. Now let me say that again. The quality and texture of your inner dialogue is going to determine the quality of your life. Let me explain. There are, in my opinion, a couple ways that you can think about this concept. First off is the way I often think about it, probably most, is this inner voice is often the way that I kind of feel. I often feel like it's the quote unquote angel on one side and quote unquote devil on the other side. It's, you're getting ready to raise your fees. You're getting ready to work out. You're getting ready to have a tough conversation. You're about to set a boundary, whatever the case may be. And you're getting ready to do it. And you're like, okay, we're going to do it. I'm going to say this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do the thing. And the angel part of you is like, yeah, you go, girl, you got this. And then the other side of you is like, excuse me? You think you're worth that much money? You think someone's gonna pay you that much money? Or you missed your workout yesterday, just start over on Monday. Or, if you have this conversation, if you set this boundary, this person might hate you. Or if you have this hard conversation, what if the person thinks you're selfish? What if someone really in this world thinks you're selfish? You can't have that. It's not that hard just to do what they're asking you to do. It's not that hard to deal with them walking all over you. You've done it this long, just keep it up. You're being so picky right now. So we always have this voice that's either really pumping us up, or I would say it doesn't have to necessarily hype us, but a part of us that's either supportive of the goals and the things we want to do to move our life forward. And a lot of times we have another part of us that is like, whoa, hold up. You think you can do this? Not happening. And I would even take that a step further to say sometimes there's several different voices. See, every time I watch one of the Inside Out movies, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I work with clients doing. Like all these voices, all these parts of us that are playing at any point in time, I help with that. And so if you can imagine, it's not necessarily like devil or angel, but it's essentially all these different voices with all these different needs and all these different parts that are honestly trying to protect you. Each of those parts are feeling like they're serving you in some way. Each of those parts are feeling like, hey, I know you care about this, and this is how I believe we get there. Unfortunately, that voice and the beliefs that are driving that voice are often given to us in years 0 to 7. There's a person, I don't know the profession, or I don't remember much about the person's name, which is really unfortunate. Maybe I'll find it and put it in the show notes. But there's a person who says, give me someone from years 0 to 7 and I will own them for life. Say that again. Give me someone from 0 to 7 and I will own them for life. That is because in our little nifty brains, there is what's called a critical wedge. That's the scientific name for it. If you want the fun name for it that I give it, it's your bullshit detector. It's the detector that says, hold up, I either believe that, don't believe that, or I need more information before I decide. And that little wedge is not fully formed until 7 years old. Meaning, if you, let's have a 5-year-old in front of you, and you're like, you're stupid, the 5-year-old will likely cry and go, what are you talking about? Why'd you call me stupid? And they take it very personal. Everything is so personal to them. But then you take a 13-year-old and you say, hey, you're stupid. They're like, excuse me? What did you just say to me? Like, they're not taking it personal because that wedge is formed and they're like, I don't believe that. Like, what are you talking about? I'm gonna beat you up now, or whatever the case may be, right? So we have this wedge, this bullshit detector. We have these voices, we have beliefs that are driving these voices, and all of them are all working towards how can we get the human where we know she cares about or what she wants to do in the way that we know is possible. And an area in my own life where I experienced this, or at least when I think about, there was a part of my life, very young part of my life, that I didn't have a really critical inner voice. I really was just in the moment and had flow and fun, and I wasn't really hard on myself. I just did things because I like to do them. And then I've recently been, not recently, but in the last few years, been thinking like, when did that shift? Like, when did I become this hard on myself? When did I start to be so mean to myself? And I came across the memory of basketball. And so for those who don't know, I played basketball from from 4th grade through my senior year of high school. But between 4th grade and 6th grade, I was just there to have fun. Like, I met a friend in 4th grade. She's like, I play basketball, you should play it with me. I played, and I was terrible. Like, I was the kid, the rule was made like, hey, every kid has to get so many minutes in the court. That rule was made for me because otherwise I wasn't gonna see the court. But in 6th grade, our varsity basketball coach at the time held open gyms on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays in the summer outside. Most times. It wasn't always outside, but most of the time. It was dreadfully hot outside. And it was open, these open gyms were open for people from 7th grade to 12th grade. And again, I'm 6th grade going into 7th grade, so I'm by and large the worst person at these open gyms. We play the game Lightning, where one person shoots and the next person shoots, and essentially if you're that second person and you make it before the first person's out, and the next 2 people go, and essentially until one person's the winner. And I was always the first one out. I was terrible. At that point, I didn't even know how to dribble with my left hand, do a left-handed layup. I was terrible. But I was totally okay with being terrible. I was there because I liked the game of basketball. I was there because I was like, hey, I want to get better at this. I was there because hey, it's fun, it's outside, it's with people. My dad loved that I was in it. I loved it. It was just such a fun sport for me and a fun experience for me. I enjoyed everything about it. And it didn't bother me that I was the worst because my mindset was I'll just get better. I'll just keep trying. It didn't even, honestly, I don't remember thinking I'm the worst. I just remember thinking this is fun and I'm trying and learning and getting better. And then I remember the last open gym, or towards the end of that summer, at the last few open gyms, I won a game of lightning. And I was like, look at me go. Because like, mind you, I was playing like JV and varsity players. Like I was the only 7th grader there. The rest were all JV and varsity players. So I was horrible by a long shot, but I won one final game, and that felt so good. And I went into my 7th grade year knowing how to dribble with my left hand and make that left-handed layup. I had a great season. Like I loved basketball all of 7th grade. I remember people thinking like, wow, like she's going somewhere. They'd call me the hot hand. Like I loved that sport. And then in between 7th and 8th grade, my varsity coach, the same coach from the prior year, has said, hey Cassie, I think you should go to this camp. And this camp was not like an average camp. Again, I knew none of this at the time. I knew it was a camp for point guards. And for those who aren't familiar with basketball, the point guard is a person who's like who's like at the top, usually dribbling down the court. Usually is really good at dribbling and getting between players. And then at the time, I was more of like a shooting guard. Like I played on the wings. I had a really good shot from those camps. I became a really good shooter, and I had really great form. And so I was a shooter, and he's asking me to go to a point guard camp. So number 1 issue. Number 2, this camp is also for 7th to 12th graders. So again, I'm the lower end of the totem pole at this camp. And I went to this camp with about 4 or 5 other girls from my school, and they were all years ahead of me. I think one was maybe the year ahead of me. The rest were all the same girls I went to the open gym with. So nevertheless, I'm excited. Like I'm like, cool, I'm going with these cool people. I'm going to get better. And what I didn't realize is this was also for what I now have the perspective was for like elite point guards. Like it wasn't really like where you go if you are just new to being a point guard and going to this camp. It was really the way the instructor and the coach coached was you should already have a real good foundational level that we're building on at this camp. And again, I had no knowledge of that. So I go to this camp and I get my ass handed to me. And I mean like handed to me. This camp is if I remember, it was like 8 hours a day. It was 3 or 4 days long. The first half of the camp, we did drills and stuff. And then we went up and like studied philosophy and court scenarios. And like, if this is happening, do this. And like, really like the philosophy of the game, which is actually kind of cool. Like I think that thinking back, I'm like, oh, it's kind of cool that it had both parts. But I remember it was the first time I had this awareness that, oh, I'm really one of the worst ones here. Number 1. Number 2, this coach made a lot of statements along the lines of, if you can't do this, then you can't call yourself a basketball player. Or you shouldn't call yourself a basketball player. Or you should be able to do this if you want to be successful. If you want to play this sport, you should or need to be able to do this. And in my little mushy-gushy, 7th, 8th grade brain, I was like, oh my gosh, like my whole identity was around being a basketball player. At this point, I loved this sport. It was my biggest hobby. I spent so much time doing it. And now this guy is saying I can't, and I wanted to go to college for it. I'm like, at this point, if I can't do these things, I'm not a player. And he was insanely hard. I mean, look, again, at the time, I didn't realize just all these things, but like I look back and he was intense. Like he was intense. We'd spend like hours doing different dribbling techniques, and it wasn't like, okay, you got the next one. It was like, you better get the next one or you're trash. Like he was intense. I don't think he called this trash, but it was a much different coaching experience than I'd ever experienced at this point before in my life. And I hate that it happened, but I came home from those camps completely different. I came home from those camps. I went into the camp being okay with being the worst and seeing it as a challenge that I'm like, woohoo, I'm gonna get better at this. And I enjoyed it, and I was in flow a lot of times, and I was just there for fun and for joy and to get better. And that's all I saw it as. But after that camp, that's where this internal critic started, where it's saying things like you should, or you have to be able to, or you can't. And I remember after that camp spending hours practicing outside, and I would spend hours practicing before, but it was all in like fun, and I enjoyed it. Now I had this like vivid memory of my mom being like, Cassie, come inside for dinner or whatever, and I'm like, no, I can't until I do 20 of these in a row without making a mistake. And I remember getting so frustrated, and I remember I haven't loved basketball the same since that camp. And my heart breaks for that little girl who went from having the ability just to be present and play and have love for a sport and be able to make mistakes and not make anything mean about her or what she's capable of, to this girl who's so hard on herself, so tough on herself, and was just used such, like, put so much pressure to be perfect that she never played the same again. She never played the game ever the same. Her 8th grade year, every year got almost, I'd say, worse and worse. I mean, there were some highs in there and whatever, but I remember my high school coaches being like, Cassie, get out of your damn head. Like, you are capable of this. Like, you just gotta get out of your head. They would say things like, the minute we see you make a mistake, we have to pull you because we know you won't recover. You will not get out of your head and use it as a mistake and move on. Like, you will overthink it and think about it more and make it mean, like, you'll make it think that you're terrible, and like, we can't afford that, so we take you out. And they would go as far as say things like, you're a mental midget, which I know that's not an okay word, it's definitely not what I would ever say to someone out loud now, but it's what they called me because I stunted myself time and time again because of my mindset. And then it's even crazier because years later, 10, 20 years later, I'm hanging out with some of my friends who played sports with me. And my friend said, gosh, I remember like you coming into the locker room, throwing your things, being so pissed off and mad at yourself because you weren't perfect. You didn't, make every shot. You dribbled something off your foot or whatever. And you just being so mad at yourself. And then being so mad that these coaches kept saying, we see this for you. You can do this. And, you were screaming, I can't do it. I don't know what they see in me. And just having a meltdown. And then I leave she's like, you leave the locker room. And then one of the coaches come in and goes, what the hell is wrong with her? Why doesn't she believe she can do this? Like, she has potential. She can do this. Why is she so damn hard-headed? And my friends, like, it was wild to see these back-to-back conversations about Cassie. And then it's crazy, 10, 15, 20, however many years this was later for me to hear my friends say this. I'm like, wow, they really did believe in me. And it wasn't for them, their lack of trying. It was in my mind, my strategy, the strategy my brain says, like, you value going far in this sport. So in the strategy to get you there is be incredibly hard on yourself, expect perfection, beat yourself up if you don't have mistakes. And if you do those things, you're gonna get where you want to go. And unfortunately, what that turned into was you're never gonna enjoy it the same anymore. And because you don't enjoy it, you're not going to spend as much time doing it. You are not nearly on the trajectory I was when I started. And it ultimately made the biggest difference in that sport for me. And I wish it just stopped at basketball. I wish it was just like, okay, that was just my little basketball story. But no, that same mentality, my brain's like, well, if that's true there, let's try it with academics. And so then I got into college, and when it was actually hard, like high school, I kind of breezed through. I got to college and it wasn't as easy. Same strategy. You have to be perfect, have to have all A's. You need to be this, you need to be that. And then when I found out my program I was applying to only took 18 people, increase that notch. You have to be perfect if you want to be one of those 15 people, because 3 of them are master's program. If you want to be one of those 15 people, you have to get perfect grades. If you want to be one of those 15 people, you have to do everything, volunteer, intern, you have to do all the things. And if you fall up short of any of those, you're done. You failed. You're not going to become a dietitian. You're not going to become the resource you want to be for your dad. You're done. And then that turned into my career. Once I got through the schooling and college part of it, then it flipped right to my career. And then it was on my body. And then it was every area of my life. As a wife, you're not a good wife if you don't blah, blah, and blah. You're not a good girlfriend if you don't blah, 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 and blah. And all of a sudden, I have all these shoulds and what I have to do, and this crazy bar of perfection. And in here, it's just turning into chaos and nasty. I'm not saying like I need to be like sunshines and rainbows, but I turned into like insanely high bars. And when I even reached that insanely high bar, oh, well, don't worry about that one, there's the next one. And oh, don't worry about that one, there's next. Oh, you came up short of that one? Knew it. Knew you couldn't do it. Knew you were a failure. Knew you weren't enough. And so on. I share all of this because I don't think I'm alone. In fact, I know I'm not alone. I work with so many clients that they make one mistake. They go to do the big hard thing, and that voice is just going. That voice is just as harsh on them as mine is to me. And it's crazy because all of these clients and myself, I would never, ever say what I'm saying to myself to another person. I always ask my clients, would you say what you're saying to yourself right now to your best friend, to your child, to anyone you love? And they're like, God, no. And say the same for me at this time. I would never say these things. Yet the strategy in our minds believes that if we use these strategies, we'll get what we care about and value. And at some point we have to realize that system is broken and have to rebuild it. And so these voices can really be the determinant of, do we take the shot? Do we do the thing? Or do we settle for the voice that's saying, if you want to succeed, if you want what you really care about, you need to just shh and do the status quo and do what's familiar and do what's safe. That voice is convincing us that staying the exact same is the safest option in our life. And while it is safe, it is the most painful option as well, especially if you have goals and aspirations and places you want to go in life. And so that's the one way we can think about the inner critic or inner dialogue or inner conversations we're having with ourselves. And some people have really, all those conversations are like, yeah, girl, you got this. And that's amazing. Option 2 of this is, let's say we have a life that we have worked really hard to build. And 10 years ago, if you asked yourself if you had this exact same life that 10 years ago you would be so freaking excited about. And then you create that life and you're in that life, and this voice is like, well, you'd be happier if your house was bigger. You'd be happier if your house was as spotless as all those moms on Instagram. You're still not enough. Like, you have all these things, but you're still kind of a shitty person. You know, you're not really a great wife unless you do X, Y, and Z. Oh, your friends are only with you because you help them and fix them. So this voice can also take, what I'm trying to say here is your voice can also take away from the experience and your presence of a moment that you otherwise would enjoy. See, for my own life, this voice always likes to say, well, you'll be happier when you have a modern big house. You'll be happier when you have the perfect grass and the perfectly spotless house and the business that makes tons of money and the body that looks a certain way, and you know, you do all these things for your husband, etc. And you're this kind of mom, etc. And it took a lot of time to realize that the 10 years ago me said that she wanted a house that had land. She wanted to be able to be when she was a mom, she wanted to be able to be home with them and not work a crazy number of hours and actually get to experience being a mom with them. She wanted support. She wanted to do it by herself, and she wanted slow mornings, and she wanted to focus on her health, and she wanted a husband that would be supportive with her, because like she doesn't want to do all the work, so like she wants someone who is a true partner. She wants friendships that are elevated and growing and looking forward, and people who are like looking forward to bigger and better things. And she has that. Yet she was convincing herself, I was convincing myself, that I needed all these other things to be happy, while completely missing the point that what I have in my life right now is exactly what I wanted. It just looks a bit different. And that voice keeps moving the bar, keeps changing up. Hey, you know, you'd be a better mom if, hey, you can't call yourself a good mom because you do X. You can't love your house because it doesn't look like Y. All these conversations. And it took some work to come to the realization that I actually am really happy with what I have in my life right now. I get to do what I love. As I'm doing what I love, I can hear my kid giggling with our nanny. I can hear him crawling all around. Like, I can hear exactly what they're doing. I can be home. I can go out there and have a meal with them if I wanted to or could, like time-wise. Or if I wouldn't like completely throw him into hysterics and ruin my nanny's day. I, can work out. We're still working back to getting consistent with that, but we go to a beautiful gym. We have a beautiful family. My husband knows the size diapers my kids in. He is an incredible dad. He's incredibly patient. He doesn't, like, the whole load isn't on me. Like, we split that load significantly. And we have a house that, yeah, it's not modern and perfect. And would I like the modern, pretty house? Sure. But our house supports what we need it to right now. And we have this beautiful wall of windows. We have so much natural light. We have a massive yard. And yes, that massive yard comes with a lot of trees that we are very sick of. We can have slow mornings. Like, I don't have to wake my son up if he's sleeping in. I don't have to be racing out the door to be able to get somewhere. We can have slow mornings. And all this to say is that my inner voice was trying to make me believe that what I had wasn't enough to be happy in this moment. And while I can still aspire for more, because I do, and I refuse to settle for what I want, I don't have to wait until I've arrived at those places to feel enough or feel happy or joy. Because I know if I tried that strategy now, I'm just gonna move the bar. The house will need to be bigger, it'll have to be cleaner, I'll need something more to make it then enough. And so I think with the inner critic, it actively works sometimes against us to stop us from doing things that it doesn't feel are safe or gonna do what we want to do. But it also sometimes robs us of the actual experience of what's actually in front of us, and it robs us from being truly present and experiencing true positive emotions in the moment. And that isn't to say we have to be grateful we want to be grateful, but we don't have to be grateful for, if you're like, okay, like, I actually really love all these things about my life, but I'm realizing I actually don't love this part. Cool. Now we can actually see, okay, what is actually aligned in your life and what is not, and let's go to work on that. And so I hope at this point we're starting to see how much of this inner talk and this inner voice can start to determine the choices we make, the decisions we make, the steps we take, the steps we don't take, and the why behind them. It can also just rob us of the experience of the day-to-day and completely take us out from any joy or connection, which is crazy because most people I talk to, they're looking for more joy and connection and ease in their life, and the very strategies they're using is robbing them of that in that moment right away. So from here, I've created kind of like, what do we do now? What have I done in my own life? And for me, the first one is notice. There are a lot of people who don't even think that these voices exist, or that they have an inner critic. Now, the clients I usually work with typically do. They typically are pretty aware of this gnarly voice, but some don't. But first is noticing, and not just noticing, is it there or is it not, but noticing the different kinds that are in there. Is there one that's more anxious? Is there one that's more fear-based? Is there one that's more angry? Is there one that's more critical? Is there one that's more perfectionistic? Like, we can start to characterize some of these. And I think about inside out. I almost want to, make them colorful in my brain. I'm not visual like that, but if I could, I would. Can we name them? Can we name, like, oh, that's Sassy Sally again. Oh, that's Perfectionist Peggy. Can we start to name them so that when they pop up, we're starting to say, oh my gosh, the end of the week, I've heard from Peggy 10,000 times this week. Like, let's see what her deal is. Let's dive deeper into her. And then sometimes it's noticing what the voice is saying. What exactly is it actually saying? Sometimes it's noticing when I hear that voice, is it in my own voice or is it my mom's voice? Is it my grandma's voice? Is it that coach's voice? Is it the coach of a mentor or the voice of a teacher or a mentor? Is it from social media? Is it from music? Like, there are a million ways we could have gotten that voice. And so it's helpful to notice, like, is it even using your words? Is it your voice you're hearing, or is it the voice of your actual high school coach that you're hearing? And then we can also notice things like the age of the voice. So we can start to ask ourselves, like, how old is this voice? Is this voice using things that are like, wait a minute, she sounds young. She sounds like she's having a tantrum right now. She sounds terrified. That's not the voice of me at 32 years old. That sounds like me when I was 8 or 5. And all of this data is really, really helpful because once we kind of have an idea of these things, we can start to understand the next part, which is decoding the voice. Decoding the voice to me is helping understand what does this voice care about? What does it think it's helping you do? What does it value? When did it pop up for you? For me, it was that 7th, 8th grade time. When do these voices start to pop up? How old is this voice? Again, whose voice is it? When we start asking these questions, we can start to identify sometimes when it popped up, why, and then we don't always have to know the when, but we can also get into what does it value? Like that voice of mine in basketball was like, I wanted you to be a basketball player so I could live out my dreams of being a basketball player. And now that's its value. And it's the strategy it believes how to get there is being mean and blah, blah, blah. And so now if I wanted to, I could, to that one specifically for basketball, I could talk to it and be like, hey, that's not actually how it motivate me. And, we can start to, again, understand like what its value is, how it believes it's benefiting you, or what does it believe it's benefiting you by not letting you do the other thing. Like we can really start to understand like what is its mission in life and what is the strategy it's using to help you get there. And we can decode all of that and kind of get like what's really going on here. And then we can shift it. Then we can shift that voice. There's a variety of tools I use with my clients to help them start to shift that voice and to talk in a way that's beneficial. And how do we want it to sound? What is the North Star there? And once we've done that, sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that right there is okay, cool, and we then practice it and get reps using it. And then sometimes we also need to check for congruency. And by congruency I mean, let's say you think these things, you're like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to be thinking. But when I think that, my whole body starts to shake, or I get this sinking feeling in my chest, or a knot in my stomach, or I start to cringe. That is all communication from our body that something isn't quite congruent. Some part of us, maybe there's another part that's hanging out in there that doesn't believe what we're saying, or there's part of us that there's another fear in there. Like it's giving us communication that we still haven't quite hit the mark, and we need to dig deeper if we want this all to work as a system to help us towards the goal we have at hand. And sometimes that's, again, looking at internal body sensations and the somatic side of things. Other times that's looking at, we believe this, but like our systems are so far beyond this. Like how do we start to build systems to help support this new belief and this new voice? And so again, we're always looking at not just like how we're talking, but also the body sensations. Like, okay, let's say we change this inner conversation, you go to the action, but then like your voice is trembling, your heart rate's going really high, and you just can't quite, you're almost in tears. Then we talk about what are some tools to help support your nervous system in that spot. Okay, so there's all sorts of ways that it's the inner dialogue plus the other kind of stuff there. But it all works in unison. It's all a system and it all matters. But for me, it really starts by that inner dialogue, the inner conversation, and the beliefs that are driving it. If we can change that whole conversation, we change our life. We change the trajectory of exactly where we're going or how we're experiencing and feeling our life. If you're like, I want to feel more joy and excitement, but you're hating your life constantly, but you're like, nothing in my life is really that bad, then we can talk about, okay, like how do we actually allow you to experience and enjoy the life you currently have? How can we change that inner environment so that you can enjoy the life that you have? So I'm going to break down each of these different parts in much more detail in future podcasts. I also would love to hear what resonated with you, what questions you're having after you hear all of this. What does your inner voice sound like? I would just love to hear any thoughts, anything you have from this episode. Feel free to DM me, feel free to text me if you have my number, or DM me if you don't. But I'd just love to hear from you. I would love to hear what your inner voice sounds like. If you're one of those people who don't have an inner voice, I definitely want to hear from you as well. But I hope this episode was helpful. I hope that some part of you, it resonated. I hope that some part of you understands and looks at that inner voice in a very different way. And I hope that some part of you is starting to believe, yeah, the quality and the texture of this voice will determine my life, the quality of my life. And I hope it's been helpful. So that's it for now, folks. We will chat again more about these different parts in future episodes. If you have a topic you're like, Cassie, I want you to go more in about this part specifically from today's episode or any part of my social media, please let me know. I'm always looking for ideas. And with that, cheers to never settling.